Alright everybody, I guess you kind of call, this is technically part 2, I guess it's still kind of planning, but this is more of a, what it looks like after you've actually laid down your track and actually applied the plan of how you're going to set up your blocks. I had some trouble with the part 1 of this, which was actually setting up the blocks, so just to refresh, you want to plan out your blocks before you do it. If you don't know much about signaling, I suggest looking up videos on how signals actually operate first. Because one of the keys to laying out your blocks realistically is having a good understanding of how the actual railroads function. I kind of just picked it up from noticing how signals were laid out in Railfang videos and historical, videos like documentaries on the Rio Grande or the Santa Fe, which I have DVDs on. So I just kind of picked it up, and I've been drawing track plans and doing that long enough. I could probably really build a layout without even planning and have a good idea where to set the signal blocks. But for those of you who don't, I'd highly suggest, looking up how to actually lay it out, the general systems, and that sort of stuff. Because the general systems, each one is slightly different in how the signals are laid out for it. And the rules they use to actually operate the signals are very different among each. Of course, I'm all in 1954, so mine is going to be the typical Union Switch and Signal CTC installation. So I've got the signals from BLMA. Awesome signals, by the way. But what I'm going to do in this is just give you guys an overview of how I'm setting up the blocks on my layout and why I'm setting up the way I am. So, here we go. Alright, now, the location I'm modeling is Logan, Ohio. So it's one location, so we have an eastbound main and a westbound main. So what it looks like on my layout is we come off, we're at the edge of the table here, and we've got the main, let's see, heading to our right, which would be heading east, towards the east, and then left is our west, so the railroad's orientated like you're facing north. But so the main line actually comes at the edge of the table there, over around the front of our loop, over, and then it actually comes over here and goes out the edge of the world. Okay, not really. Goes out the edge of my layout. So that's just a connector loop, which I use as my main line for now, since I don't have an extension. But if, say, for instance, I extended this and added another deck or a more main line, have it wrap around the room or whatever, status would move from main line to just a connecting track or a dummy connection, continuous loop. I shouldn't really call it a dummy because it's actually connected, but so what I did is, as I was going, I basically put in the gaps as I was going. I'm using plastic or insulating rail joiners from Atlas, and the rest is Atlas rail joiners on Code A3 track, Atlas Flex track, and Walther's turnouts, with Atlas number 4s in the yard and the number 6 in the yard. But So the first block comes from the edge of our layout to right there. Maybe you can see the joint, the insulating joiner, but you can't. I don't know if you can or not. But that's block number 1. Also, briefly, note on the wiring, this is our common rail, this is our control rail. Or you can call it plus. So I'm using black for plus, you know. Black equals plus equals common is how I keep it straight in my mind. And then red for gapped or control, the control rail. So this is one section from the edge of the layout over there to right here. Next section is this turnout, or section 2. Sections 3 and 4 are the main line, all the way over there to that first turnout behind the signals and my caboose. And then the other block, I can't remember which one's 3 and which one's 4 now, but these two are 3 and 4. I can't remember which. But this one starts here. I'll put insulating joiners right here when I extend this track off over into here, which I have most of the turnouts for. I'm just waiting for 2 more curved turnouts and a Y. And then I'll have a double track mainline around the whole layout for show ring. But it won't be double track for operation purposes. Anyway, so block 1 comes over here. This turnout's block 2, block 3 or 4, and then this block, which might be 3 or 4, I can't remember which. It starts there and it goes all the way around. Also that turnout. And then block 5 is from that turnout all the way to the curved turnout inside the tunnel. And then I have insulating joiners there. And then from in the tunnel over there all the way around through the curved turnout to the junction between the curved turnout and the one on the main. Right there, that's block 6. And then the yard block is block 7. I still have a little bit to do. Extend the industrial spur over that direction. And then block 8 is going to be from that number 4 turnout, which will be replaced by that Atlas number 6, around to the 2 curved turnouts there. And then from that curved turnout, that'll go right there. On those will be block 8, I think I'm up to. But anyways, there'll be that curved turnout, these 2 tracks, which I have drawn on the phone for now, over through those 2 turnouts and back to there. Now I'm just doing that for occupancy, so I know what's where. It just will kind of help at public exhibitions, because I built this to be able to take to train shows and that sort of stuff. And it'll get a test run at my church's harvest party this year. But so that's how I laid out the blocks. Now, also one more quick note. That whole section of turnouts is called a block, but a modern equivalent would be a control point. So like CP3 or whatever. But the first one comes here, and the reasoning behind that is nothing special. I mean, it's just straight. Now, if you look at videos, a lot of the time you'll see the turnout at the end of a regular sign will be 1 block. I was going to include both of these turnouts as 1 block, but I decided not to. Because operationally, if I have a train coming on the main, and I have another one coming out of my engine service over here, like say a switcher's coming out, and it's going to go around the loop on the inside and get over to the yard to switch. If this was 1 block, when it came out, the computer would think both of these were occupied, and it would change that signal right there to red. Well, that's not really a true indication because my Mikado isn't coming out on the main line. It's going to stay on this track. So I've got this as one, and then this is a second. Because even if the Mikado is getting over this, it's going to occupy both blocks. But if it's coming on the inside, or it's the Mikado or my F units or my articulator or whatever, it's not going to need to come out here on the main because it's going through that siding. And then it can go through a turnout to get into my yard. It doesn't need to come out on the main. So that's why I split those two up. Those two just because the train can stop on either one of those, you know, it's a siding. That's the way it works. And then that one's a block for pretty much the same reasoning, that it's the end of a siding. You know, doing a two train, you're going from two routes to one route operationally. So that's pretty much the reasoning behind how I set up my blocks. Like I said, the yard in reality, it's not the main line, it's a side track, so it wouldn't be on the detection circuits. Nor would those two tracks right there. I'm not going to have my engine service on the detection circuits anyways. I don't know, I might. Just to show me where stuff is when I'm operating at night and have the headlights off on units or whatever. But in reality, those areas would not be signaled because they're not the main line. They're just switching areas. So that's pretty much how I lay out my signal blocks. So part 1 was planning, part 2 is laying them out as you do track. And then part 3, the next part, once I finish making a few modifications to the wiring and the layout, well, I shouldn't say modifications, I should say prepping, because this layout was DCC from the start. But once I finish those up, I'll make another one, and you guys will see the prep wiring for the actual signal components, the actual block detector, and the actual control board for the signals. And then once I get those in from Digitrax, which they should have been here now, but they're late. But once I get those in, that'll be part 4, and that'll be the whole process of actually connecting them up. And then I'll get them tested and everything. And then part 5 will be actually creating a panel with JMRI and basically finishing up the project and bringing the whole thing to life. And then the final part, or one of those parts, will probably be on setting up rolling stock to be detected. Because most of my freight cars have metal wheels, but they don't have a resistor on them, so there's no way for the LocoNet or the beat or the block detectors to detect the actual rolling stock. It only detects stuff that's drawing current. Well, freight cars aren't drawing current. Locomotives will draw current, and live passenger cars or cabooses will draw current. My passenger cars won't. So I'll have a video on how I make my resistor wheel sets so they're detected by the system. But so, yeah, that's all for now, people. Hope you enjoyed.